Hi everybody, I'm Ron from Full Time Dream and we're here in beautiful National Forest in northwestern Pennsylvania. Today we're going to do something a little bit different than we normally do. We're going to do a little DIY. Anybody who happens to have a Thor product, either a motorhome or fifth wheel or anything like that, or even some of the other brands are doing the same thing from 2015 till present, you get the dreaded wall separation. What's happening is that the wall is separating away from the floor. Either what's happening is that the screws behind here are breaking off or they're pulling through the sidewall. Now we're going to go ahead and do this and show you that you can do it by yourself without having to take it to a dealership and having your rig be gone for a while. Now we noticed that we were having the issue with ours because as we're traveling down the road, the wall will flex, and we had a screw in our dashboard start to pop up here in the front. So we came out and checked, and of course we right away could see that it happened on both sides, but we did this and I completed the other side already just to make sure that I could do it and show you how to do it without having any issues ahead of time and not look like an idiot doing it. On the table here I kind of got the list, the tools that we have that I used during the process. I've got an impact gun, I've got a number 2 Phillips screwdriver bit. I also have a star bit for the bolts that we're using. I have a 1/8 inch drill bit put in my drill here so that I can pre-drill the holes before I put the bolts in. I have a pry bar and I'll show you what the pry bar is going to work for. We have a razor scraper and a razor blade, a razor knife, to be able to cut away some of the caulking along the edges. This is just basically a chisel, but it works to help me get stuff started before I can use the pry bar. And then of course one of the tools that everybody has is an old butter knife. I have a no impact hammer that I use. I still put the rag on it and you'll see towards the end what we're using that for. Then I have number 14 by 3 or 3.5. We've got the 3.5 inch ones because the Lowe's that we went to didn't have the 3. So we have the number 14 by 3 is what they recommend for what's going into it. And I also have self-tapping screws to help with the molding that will show us along the way. We have painter's tape that we're going to put along everything so that we don't scratch the paint around where we're working. And I'll go ahead and start by putting the painter's tape on there now. That's it. Okay, now that we have our painter's tape on to protect the paint around it, we're going to take our razor knife and we're going to go ahead and we're going to cut this caulk line right across the top so that this molding will come off a little bit easier. I do say a little bit easier. Okay, now that I've got that caulk line cut all the way along the top of the molding, the underside of the molding doesn't have the caulk line that you have to worry too awful much about. I cut the caulk line around this little end cap on the molding, and now I'm going to try to get that off so that we can start working on the molding itself. Now this is the end caps that come off. There's a little tab that fits inside of the railing that goes underneath the molding. And I just tell you, don't try to rush these things. Take your time. That's the number one thing you need to do. Make sure that you take your time. These caps and everything you can buy from Thor. They're not going to come painted. The same with the railing. You can buy the molding that's right along this side, but when you get it, it won't be painted. It won't match the coach. So take your time and do the thing in a process. Get it off, and again, take your time. You can bend this. This will bend and start to roll as you're taking it off. The only thing you don't want to do is get it to kink. If you kink it, it's going to be harder to get it out. You're going to crack the paint.
It's aluminum, right?
It is an aluminum molding. So let me go ahead and see if I can get this thing started, and I'll show you what we're doing on the way down. As you can see, I'm getting it off, and you see that there's a slight curve to it as you're taking it off. The whole idea is not to pull it out to get it off, but to use the pry bar inside and pry it up a little bit as you go. That way you don't kink it here or break it. This is aluminum, and what it's going on to and coming off of is aluminum. And once we get them off, I'll go ahead and show you how they connect together. Okay, this is the molding off now. As you can see on the inside, what there is this top lip catches over top of this. Then these two other bars have little lips that snap into place here. So what you're doing is you're prying out and up so that it comes off along the way. Now you see where the end cap fits into it? Now as you can see, this is the inner molding, and we're going to have it take it away. You might be able to see that sidewall flex a little bit better with the outer molding off. We're going to go ahead and take these screws out and take this inner molding off so that we can go ahead and clean up the inside. Just to show you that these screws on that inner molding have been rusted off, broke off at some point. We're just going to go ahead and keep on taking the rest of them out. Okay, this is the inner molding that goes right along the sidewall. And we got this out, and you'll see that they use a two-sided foam tape to hold it on, to keep it weathered, and then the screw holes for the screws went through. We're going to go ahead and get this all cleaned up. Then we're going to clean up the wall here before we go ahead and do anything else. Okay, now that we got the molding off and we got it cleaned up, you can see where the problem comes along, why they're having the issues with this. According to Thor, there's supposed to be a bolt. There's supposed to be a bolt every 4 inches along this section so that it holds the wall together to the floor. And what's going on, if we'll see, there's nothing there. We got 11 inches before the first bolt. Then we have another 10.5 inches, another 11.25 inches, 9.5, and 9.5. And that's what happens is that the bolts in the sidewall are taking more stress than what they're supposed to, and they break themselves free. We found ours ahead of time so that before we had too much of a problem. Some people have actually had the cab separate from the wall separate from the floor completely and lift up off, and they've had to jack this thing up in order to get the wall to line up to be able to put the screws in. We don't have that issue right now. Okay. Now, like I said, Thor says that they should be every 4 inches. With that being 11 inches, I'm going to put one in close to the front. I'm going to put another in between here and where the bolt is, right to start with. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a screw in between each one of the holes that they've already got in place. I'm going to go ahead and use my 1/8 inch drill bit and pre-drill the holes before I use my self-tapping screws. I'm going to do 2 at a time. I'm going to put one here, then I'll put the screws in so that it holds it tight, and then I'll move my way down. Now the sidewall goes through this piece of plywood into a metal channel, and the channel then you go, so the reason why we're pre-drilling is we're going through this channel and then through the other side of the channel. So we're drilling through the plywood and 2 sides of that channel going in. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to take this molding down. This is a rubber molding that comes off. I'm going to peel that down below, and I'm going to put a screw in here to hold this in now that that sidewall is connected. The sidewall is nice and solid now. This is the rubber molding, and it peels back. Like, again, take your time peeling it back. Peel it down through. From all of the flexing in the wall, we had a couple of screws that were broken off, so I put new screws in place to hold it in nice and solid. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take some of this E6000 self-leveling. It's clear, and we're going to put it over top of each one of the screw heads to try to keep it, make it a little more waterproof, and we'll put this back up into place. Okay, so now this is the inner molding that we're going to put back up in place. And what we did is we put some of this Scotch mount double-sided extreme outdoor tape on there, so that we're going to put that up onto it and put some screws into it to get it into place. Now when we take this side up, we got to make sure we get it lined up good. What we did is I put it up into place and marked on our tape where the ends of it are, so that we can get it into place and square level where it's supposed to be. Center molding in place. We're going to replace the old screws with these 3/4 inch length number 8 self-tapping screws with a head on them to hold on better. See, now what I did is I had to make sure that the screw was in the center, so that when we put the outer molding in where it grabs on the top and the bottom, the screw's not in the way holding it out. Okay. Now we're back to the outer molding, and again you can see how it curved as it came off. I'm going to try to straighten it out a little bit without bent or putting a kink in it again, just to get it a little bit straighter. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just go. I need this towel. These two tabs fit in between here and here, and the top one snaps into the very top of the inner molding. I'm going to get it started, and then we're going to tap it into place with the mallet. We're going to be lining up our lines, our paint lines, get it as close to where we're supposed to be as we can. Now you can see I got the very end of it started in, and we've got our lines for our paint lines lined up, so that now we should be able to match the whole length as we tap it along. Now we're going to work our way along. I'm just doing this. You can use a rubber mallet, but I thought we had a rubber mallet in the motorhome. We didn't have one. I looked all over the place to find a rubber mallet. All I could find is these dead blow hammers. And I just don't want anything to be able to mark this up, so I'm just going along and putting the rag in front of it as I tap it along. As you can see, the gap in the top will close up. Okay, now as I work my way along, I decided we're going to put this cap on the end, so I didn't have to try to get it in and around and back into place. So we got that pounded in. And what you do is you go along after you've got it in and follow along and look to see if there's any gaps that may need to be tapped in a little bit, like the one right here. Okay, the cap I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of glue on the other end to hold it in place. The one on the front end of the front, closer to the front of the motorhome, is up against this other molding, so it's not as apt to fall or pop out while we're waiting for it. The one down here isn't up against anything, so we're going to go ahead and get it lined up and in place. Now, this project isn't 100% done, but we're going to let the glue that we put behind on top of all the screws and all of that to cure. We're going to let that cure for about 24 hours. And there you have it. I got it pretty much finished. The job looks pretty good. We got all our paint lines to line up, all of that. What we're going to do is we're going to let it set for 24 hours. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to caulk the whole entire thing around all of the caps and everything, and even the front part, caulk on both sides. Now, we're not professionals at doing this stuff, but if you're out on the road all of the time, you're going to have to do some of these projects on your own, or you're going to be without your home for extended periods of time. We don't know how long it would have taken the dealership to get to doing this for us, but all in all, it took me about an hour and a half to do each side. So in about 3 hours, we repaired it. You can see the sidewall now is back connected to the floor. The front cap is now back in, lined up. Everything is good. And we're going to go from there. Now we're going to leave a link to the Amazon store that'll have all of the products that we used, so that you can go and check it out, and a list of all of the things that we used as far as screws and all of that kind of stuff. You can get the screws directly from Thor, order them from Thor, but we were able to get the same screws from Lowe's when we went there. And remember, it's a number 14, 3-inch long, self-tapping wood to metal screw. Okay. If you have any questions, go ahead and put some questions down below, and I'll do my best to answer them or send you to the people that would know better than I do. If you like the video, give us a thumbs up. And on that note, we're going to call it a day, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.